whenever I hear this gospel parable, I always think, never have I even for one day in my whole life gone to bed hungry. Never for one day in my life did I not have enough clothes to wear. Never for one day in my whole life did I not have a place to stay, where I was safe, where I was warm, when I was sheltered. I thought, and I think to myself, how blessed I have been all my life with such riches around me all the time. I'm sure many of you can say the same thing as well about your own life too, never experiencing real hunger or real homelessness. Well, the gospel really presents us with a huge paradox between someone who has lots, a lavish amount, more than they will ever need in this life, and someone who is poor, who has so little. For the rich man, it says, dines sumptuously every day, dressed in fine clothes, and lives in a beautiful, warm, safe house every day. At the same time, this poor man, who is given the name Lazarus, whereas the rich man was not given any name whatsoever, he sat day after day at the rich man's gate, at the gate of his household, in tattered clothes, begging for something, just a little something, to eat and drink. It says about this rich man that he feasted in luxury every day, and the word that is used in Greek to explain this feasting was to give a sense that he ate gourmet meals every day, feasting on exotic dishes every day. In Jesus' day in Palestine, which lived in an agrarian society, people didn't eat a lot of meat. They typically would eat meat one day a week, if they were fortunate. But it says that this man dined sumptuously, probably eating meat every day. He just took it for granted, didn't realize how so many people went without all that he had every day. And in comparison, Lazarus was waiting just for the crumbs that would fall from this rich man's table. He would be happy to receive them, but he never received them. In the land of Palestine in Jesus' day, they didn't have silverware like we have, knives and forks and even napkins, but they ate mainly with their hands. And in rich people's houses, what they would do is after they finished eating, they would wipe their hands off with bread, like pita bread, to wipe their hands off. Then they would discard the bread like you would discard a paper napkin. So this poor man Lazarus was just craving for just the things of the scraps that they were going to throw away, which it itself was bread, but yet it says he never got even this, even the scraps that fell after the family had wiped their hands on the bread, the pita. Never got any of this. Well, Lazarus was a beggar, it says in this gospel. He was covered with ulcerated sores, and so helpless that he couldn't even protect himself from the ravaging dogs that came and licked themselves with the sores on his body. After portraying this dichotomy between the rich man and this poor man Lazarus, it says that both these men died. It says they come to the end of this life in this world, and they face the life that will be before them in the next life after this world. And first it says in this presentation, that Lazarus is in the glory of Abraham and the saints in heaven, but the rich man is sent into torment. The rich man was sent into torment. We can ask ourselves, why? Why was this rich man sent into torment? What did he do? What was the sin that he committed that caused him to live now forever in hell? Well, he had never ordered Lazarus to be taken off his property. He had never told him to get away, to just kind of be kicked away from his place. He was not deliberately cruel to this poor man. He never called him names or just scoffed at him at all. The sin of the rich man was that he never noticed Lazarus. He never noticed Lazarus. It said he was right at the gate of his property where he passed by day and night probably, saw him every day, but he didn't notice him, didn't feel any compassion of his situation as well. He felt it was perfectly natural for him to come and go with his own pleasant, easy life and not care at all about this man's plight, this man's hunger. He wallowed in his luxury while Lazarus suffered in want. So it was not so much what the rich man did to do a sin of commission so much, but rather what he did not do, a sin of omission that sent him to hell. He couldn't look on somebody else's sufferings and feel a nagging sense of that desire, that need to help them, to reach out to them, but rather he did nothing about it and went his own happy way, in his own peaceful, luxurious life. At the end of this parable, it says that the rich man died and went into Hades. He requested that Abraham would go to talk to his brothers and prevent them from coming to that same place that he was in the horrors of hell. But Abraham says, people have the prophets. They have the law of Moses to follow. If they're not following these, if they're not paying heed to what the prophets and Moses are saying, then they don't have any chance whatsoever unless they change their lives accordingly. He says that even if someone was to come from the dead, then they probably would not change if they don't feel any feeling of that desire to help when they see someone hurting, someone in pain, someone in hunger. As we hear this gospel today, this tremendous comparison between the rich and the poor, the life in this world and the life after, it causes us to be shaken up from our complacency, from our exorbitant living that we have here in North America. We need to personally wake up and hear the call of this gospel to really make a difference in the lives of so many who are hurting, who are suffering. How many of us watch evening TV and often see commercials that are advertising care for children who are hungering, people who are hoping to find safe shelter from being refugees from their lands, care for the elderly poor. We often think there's so many needs, there's so many wants out in the world. What is my contribution going to be doing in the least to help these people? Am I being like that rich man, just sinning by omission, not doing anything when there is so much want around us? But each of us can do something to help those who are poor, those who are suffering, and make a difference in their lives. I can share with you one experience that I had that showed the importance of making a difference in just one person's life. I was living in Toronto for a while, being sent to do graduate studies for my teaching at the seminary, and Bishop Fabro had arranged for me to live in a Brazilian parish while I was studying. And every day I would go from the Brazilian parish, which was on Avenue Road, downtown to St. Michael's College in downtown Toronto. And there was very conveniently a subway entrance right near Holy Rosary Parish, which I took all the way downtown. Then when I got off the subway, I had to go by Yonge Street, Wellesley, and Bay Street to finally get to St. Michael's College. And every day to and from the university, I would pass by dozens of people that were sitting on the street asking, begging for money. And the first few days as I was going to the university, I was thinking, there's all these people begging. If I give something to everybody every day, I'm going to be completely out of money by the time of my finishing of my education. But then one day as I was coming back to Holy Rosary Parish, I got off the subway and got onto the street, and I looked at my watch. It was about 5 o'clock. I encountered one woman that stood there every day asking for money, and she was a middle-aged woman. She looked in pretty good condition compared to some of the other people that were begging. And she says, "Sir, can you spare some change for me today?" I looked at my watch. I thought it was 5 o'clock, and I said to her, "Have you had any supper today?" She just kind of chuckled, and she says, "I haven't had any to eat since early this morning." I said to her, "Well, can I buy you supper?" And she thought kind of funny, and she says, "Okay, sure." So we went to the Subway restaurant just a couple feet away from where she was standing. We sat down, we had supper, we had our Subway supper together. I told her that I was a priest, that I was living at Holy Rosary Parish. I asked her about her situation. She said her name was Annie. I said, "Annie, how did you get here to be on the street asking people for money?" She says, "Oh, it's a long story. You just don't have time to hear my story." I says, I've got time. I've got time to listen. Tell me, what's your situation?" And I was very surprised to hear her say that she was married with 2 later teenage children, and that she had been in a very bad car accident. And that as a result of the car accident, she was in a lot of pain, and her doctor had prescribed for her some pain medication that she became addicted to. And even after the ravages of the accident wore off, she continued to be hung on to that pain medication. And her husband confronted her saying, "Unless you kick this habit of the pain medication, I'm not going to be able to stay with you. You're going to have to be on your own." And she came home one day and found her husband left a note saying, "I'm taking the kids, you're on your own." So realizing that she just didn't have enough to continue paying for the house that they lived in, she found refuge with one of the street missions downtown in Toronto, and just stood day by day on the streets asking for money. Well, my heart went out for her, and I realized that in the parish that I was at Holy Rosary, that they had ran what they called the Out of the Cold program on Saturday mornings, where they'd given people help with food on Saturdays. I also knew that after this program, there's one person that helped people to find jobs to get themselves back on their feet. Also another person that helped people to find more stable residence, that they wouldn't have to live in these shelters. And so I connected her with these two people. She was able to find a place to live in the basement apartment of one of our parishioners, and be able to find a job to be able to build up her life again. I realized that one moment of noticing her and not just letting those many people who are homeless on the side of the street just be part of my landscape, and just offering to have supper with her, that made a big turning point in her life. In Matthew 25, Jesus says to us, "Whatever you have done to the least of your brothers and sisters, you have done to me." We are to consider those many people that we meet in the course of our lives and think how we have treated them. And this is the way that we want to treat Jesus himself. What can we do today to make one little difference in someone's life who is hurting this day? Let's remember the words of the rapper Eminem, who says, "You only get one shot. Do not miss your chance and blow this opportunity that comes once in a lifetime."